Mr. Chancellor, distinguished guests, family and friends of graduating students and graduands, it is an enormous privilege to introduce today's Convocation speaker and our newest recipient of Brock University's Honorary Doctorate of Laws, honoris causa, Dr. Susan Venditti. Susan Venditti is a mother, grandmother, wife, and by training a teacher. She was active in her home and school association, became a real estate agent, a trustee and chair of the Catholic Board of Education for Niagara. 19 years ago, she became an active volunteer and later chair of the interchurch program called Out of the Cold, operating in downtown St. Catharines, that has provided overnight accommodation and meals for individuals in need. It is here that she became acutely aware of the lack of services for individuals who were marginalized by poverty, mental health, addiction, and homelessness. She saw an opportunity to create a program to help individuals in this situation to be able to gain stability and to participate and grow. She applied to the National Network of Mental Health and got the job as the director of the new Start Me Up Niagara program. The program initially focused on employment, but because of her compassion and great vision, she's been able to broaden the scope of the program to include persons who are marginalized and require housing, advocacy services, and a drop-in center for lunch on the weekends. The program strives to support those who are homeless to get off the streets and to help them back on their feet. It gives people something to do and a place to be recognized as an individual. The service operates 365 days a year because poverty and need do not take holidays. She continues to serve as the chair of the Out of the Cold Interchurch Committee, is a member of the Social Assistance Advisory Committee, the Youth Without Secure Housing Committee, the Sex Trade Task Force. She's involved with Prosperity Community Niagara Region and the Diocesan Social Justice Committee. I read in her bio that she hoped that through her work and advocacy that she has made a small difference. I believe that the difference that she has made to the lives of the individuals whom she's been able to help is life-changing. And to our community, her contribution is huge. She embodies the spirit of a caring community that's taking responsibility for supporting those who are going through difficult times. As I look at the qualities of a great leader, a quote from George Bernard Shaw and later paraphrased by the Kennedy brothers comes to mind. You see things and you say, why? But I dream things that never were, and I say, why not? It is this vision, this spirit of hope and drive that makes Susan Venditti a perfect recipient of today's Convocation honor. In 2010, the Rotary Club of St. Catharines awarded her the Paul Harris Fellowship Award for her contributions to our community. It is our privilege at Brock University to add yet another recognition for her work. I have the honor to present Susan Venditti to receive at your hands the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa.
Susan Venditti, it is my pleasure to admit you to the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa, and grant you all the rights, privileges, and insignia pertaining thereto. Congratulations, Dr. Venditti.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Chancellor, I take pleasure in calling on Dr. Venditti to deliver the Convocation address.
Thank you very much. That was a lovely introduction. Dr. Lightstone, faculty members, honored guests, graduates, and friends, I am actually very surprised to be standing here today. In my wildest dreams, I never expected to receive an honorary Doctor of Laws from Brock University. I would like to thank the Senate and University for the honor. Congratulations, graduates. You completed what you started. you have graduated. As we all celebrate the day, I am very grateful to the people in my life who made this day possible. It is on their shoulders that I stand. It's so encouraging to me that having concern for people and working to improve their welfare and happiness is recognized and celebrated. I must admit that I feel like an imposter, for I've lived a happy, ordinary life, an active life, played out on a very small stage. You see, I was born in St. Catharines, and I've lived my entire life here. In fact, I only work 3 blocks from the hospital that I was born in. I had a pretty normal childhood. I was very lucky to be surrounded by people who loved me, who believed in me, who shared their enthusiasm for ideas, for equality and justice with me. As Dorothy said, I've had lots of jobs. I was a teacher, real estate agent, director of a social service agency, and I spent many years as an elected trustee. Along the way, I met Tony, and together we raised 3 children whom we taught to fly, and they have. They also have taken the time to teach Tony and I about the changing world around us. I'm happy that they've flown here today from England, Colorado, and Qatar to celebrate with me. My uncle died alone on the streets of St. Catharines. He had served in the Second World War and came home shell-shocked, or what we would now call with post-traumatic stress disorder. He never recovered. He became homeless. He used alcohol to quiet his nightmares. He died on the streets of St. Catharines, pretty well in the same location where the Brock Performing Arts Center now stands. Then it was the jungle, and it was on the banks of the old canal. Sometimes he'd call his home, or my home. His calls weren't welcome. But after a call, my mom would tell me stories about her brother, the before the war Uncle Roy. How smart, how clever, how brave, and how she couldn't understand. I remember seeing him downtown one time, and when he asked me if my name was Susan, I said no, and he walked away. I will never forget this. Nearly 3 decades later, when out of the cold, an across Canada faith-based movement that was designed to assist the homeless by providing a hot meal and shelter in empty church rooms was starting here in St. Catharines. I signed up to volunteer. I was going to be part of the Sunshine Crew, which meant I would go in at 6 a.m., waken the guests, clean up, and get on with my pretty perfect life. It was a wonderful volunteer job, I thought. I'd feel great about helping, and I was so sure it would interfere with nothing. I felt I knew a lot about homeless people. For just like many others, I had a lot of assumptions. I knew exactly what they should do, how they should be living their lives. The only problem was I didn't actually know a living homeless person at that time, and I certainly didn't know anyone by their name. On my first morning volunteering at the cathedral, a woman came up to me and said, "You middle-class ladies have to help us because we're going to die out here." This was a direct call to action. Message received. So I did what everyone would do. I tried to help. I went to the Housing Help Center. After all, they found people housing. They treated me so well when I arrived, but they told me, there are no houses. She doesn't have enough income. Her behavior can be difficult, and she has too much stuff stored in lockers around the city. They also said they would help and keep me in the loop. Actually, I couldn't help her, but I kept meeting her everywhere. She was articulate, well-educated, and even had her own doctorate. But she'd had an experience, a terrible experience of loss and mental illness. She didn't have housing. This just was not right. I also noticed she carried a huge number of belongings with her, stuffed into her shopping cart wherever she went. I'm glad to say that today she is housed, and although she moves frequently, and along with her go her belongings, I would consider her a friend and a success. While most people would consider her belongings junk, they are her connections to the past and her hope for the future. For without these belongings, she wouldn't have a future in her mind. So they both hold her up and drag her down. She still does not fit into the system, but I at least know her name. When I became chair of Out of the Cold, I was surrounded by others who wanted to help in simple ways, a community of helpers. We're welcoming strangers, serving a hot meal, providing a warm bed if needed to anyone who came. There was no bureaucracy, no judgment. Guests and volunteers getting to know each other. It was simple, and its methods survived the skeptics. Few rules, no questions. Over the last 19 years, this modern day miracle has served over 300,000 meals and have provided about 60,000 nights of accommodation in St. Catharines, all done by volunteers. 3 years after volunteering, I got the job to be the director of Start Me Up Niagara. I received a key to an office on St. Paul Street, a computer that was a complete mystery, a telephone, and the project began. The vision of the community committee was to build a society where everyone was included, healthy, and sufficient. A tall order. One of the first participants in the employment part of this project had been a forensic auditor before burnout struck. I wondered why he was always waiting at the door, no matter how early I came to work. Of course, I let him in, and then it dawned on me. He did not have a home, but was valiantly trying to get back into a business that had supported him well. His homeless state was his well-kept secret. When another man told me about a job opportunity coming up at TRW, that his friend was leaving and he thought he could get the job even though he hadn't worked for many, many years, I said to him, "Would you like that?" He turned and looked at me and said very clearly, "Lady, are you some new kind of stupid?" Well, I might not have been totally stupid, but I had a lot to learn. One of the first lessons was that unemployment was one of many issues in the lives of people with mental health issues who dealt with poverty, social exclusion, and judgment that was served up daily. Their life experiences ran parallel to individuals using Out of the Cold. Their needs were similar too. I saw a connection between programs. My big dream was to start a resource center open every day of the year. It would be based on the same operating principles as Out of the Cold. Welcoming, very few rules, no time limits. Those at Out of the Cold would no longer have to wander around all day outside in the winter to help, and there would be help to solve problems that could only be helped during daytime hours. Others who came in for more formal programs would have coffee and camaraderie. Everyone would be able to volunteer. It would be a place to be somebody. At the same time, my husband retired after a long teaching career. I knew that to build the center, I would need his help. He would have to accompany me on the journey full-heartedly. He agreed, and without him, this work would be impossible. We knew we had to move on this dream because we witnessed suffering and it felt terrible to feel it as witnesses and to feel it as a person who was living it. It was Christmas morning and a guest, Marty, stayed to clean up. As we said thanks and goodbye, he told us he was walking to Port Dalhousie because he loved to walk. And then he would be back at Out of the Cold for dinner. After Marty, we went to Mass and we saw another guest, Dr. K, kneeling with his Out of the Cold bag tied to his backpack. Both were alone and going to spend the day outside, Christmas Day outside. They'd be alone, they'd be cold. I cried. As the executive director of Start Me Up Niagara, I had the chance to make a difference, and I was responsible for actually making it happen. I had a great board. All I had to do was find the money and staff to make it happen. People who cared, were qualified, thought outside the box, could work in ways that were beyond established norms, and at the same time work inside a system that was unable to meet the needs of people who did not match system requirements, and at the same time stay positive. The center opened, we built it together. So how do we keep this place going? We asked for help, and the participants rise to the challenge, cooking meals, cleaning up, leading activities, gardening, and doing many other things. Our motto, working together, moving forward in action. The community today is quite fascinated. When visitors walk in the door, they feel warmth, and this is not what they're expecting. Conversations start, relationships build, the community is strengthened. But it's not always easy. We interact with people whose lives have been marked by trauma, lost opportunities, and are in crisis. Being part of the solution can be very difficult and at the same time very rewarding. It's quite humbling that those who have so little say thank you for the simplest things. It is amazing to see the level of resilience and creativity used to survive by those who, with few or none of the resources most of us take for granted. So how do we build a better future? We do it by caring. We forget about the boundaries that separate us. We try to say yes rather than no. We provide practical solutions to problem solve. We are united in our belief that we are making a difference in people's lives and that lives are actually better, and this matters. We catch miracles, like the day when there was not enough food for lunch, and a van pulled up loaded with vegetable trays, fruits, and cheese from our graduation. It was a feast. And the day that two parents found room in their hearts to bring their pregnant daughter back into their home so that mom and baby would have a better chance. Today, our model of service is being recognized. We're buying our own building. We're helping more people get work and find housing. We have a great staff, supportive board, and participants who are sharing part of their lives with us. And I know more is coming. So what have I actually learned? I've learned that everyone has value. I know that being kind is more important than being right. I know that life moves in directions beyond imagination. I know that hard work and perseverance make a difference. I know there's much left to do. Graduates, see how fortunate you are. Be grateful. Use your education and gifts to make a difference. Start with those nearest you, then spread your wings. There is still time to build a better world. There is much left to be done. To borrow from the Trappist monk Thomas Merton, when I look out at you, I see you all shining like the sun, resplendent in your achievement and the possibilities ahead. A very bright light. Congratulations.